Welcome, everybody, to Visionality's Building Forward. Our co-star today is Katie. I'm so glad that you joined me on this really great topic. Y'all know the drill. We are covering a big topic in 25 minutes, and then we open it up for lived experiences and questions and comments. So let's just kick it off, my friend. So today we are talking about how to advocate for yourself in terms of work-life balance and also compensation in your job. So it has to start with money, right, Katie? Like money
Yes,
is
always
money,
starts with money.
money is money, and we all money is real, and it takes money to live, and it takes a lot of money to live in coastal Southern California. So like we're just going to start there. So how do we know what the right money is? How do we talk to our bosses about or our supervisors about what the right money is? What do you think, Katie?
Well, I first want to start with the story of when you were hiring me and you made me a job offer, which of course was great. I had to do the scary thing and say, "Emily, I need a little bit more money to be able to agree." And you said, this is what I've looked at, this is where I can put you. But because you asked, I'm going to give you a little bit more. So it wasn't necessarily, the back and forth of traditional negotiations where you can really say why. It was, I don't know, it was really interesting. And it was nice that even though I had to ask for something really, really tough, you rewarded me with, you know, yes, because you asked. And
Because you
a
asked,
lot
yeah,
of
and
people don't ask.
a lot of people don't ask. I think too, and I'm out of touch with this, but at Visionality, we post actual job ranges, actual salary ranges, and we offer jobs actually within the salary range. And so that can be unique where, employers lowball expecting a um a negotiation. And but we always say, like, ask. It doesn't hurt to ask. And then, we weren't able to bump it up a lot because we did offer, we put our best foot forward, but as a gesture of good faith to say, proud of you for asking, here's a little bit, like just a little bit more that we think we can swing. So I'm glad you shared that story.
Yeah. And something that I saw the other day, which really resonated with me. Historically, I'm from a fundraising background, and our resumes are a lot. We hop around a lot, and that is due to trying to up level our salary as well as our position. That's just the name of the game. And the statistic that I saw was, if your salary has not increased by 16% since 2020, you are losing money. So let's say you calculated out, you're at 17% since 2020. You've technically only had about a 1% raise because the cost of living has gone up so much. We're so used to seeing a 2 to 4% increase for cost of living per year, but that's really, it's not cutting it. Mm-hmm. So take a hard look at really what you're at and figure out a way to make it come to that point where you can legitimately say, now I have a raise. Now I can actually afford this.
Yep. And we purchase a bunch of wage surveys. So just another data point, in the most recent Fair Pay in Southern California nonprofits, which was data from 2022 released in 2023, most nonprofits reported that they expected to give a 4% salary increase. So that's just a little bit of a data point to say, most nonprofits in Southern California are predicting to raise wages. And I do think too, there's a lot of that people are starting to acknowledge that turnover is your largest expense. And so it's actually cheaper to give meaningful raises than to replace people. So I think that's a good sign, but just something to think about.
Absolutely.
I want to talk too about wage compression. So wage compression is when an employee has been at a job for a long time, and over that period of time, the minimum salary has gone up, or what it took to attract top talent has gone up. And sometimes people's jobs don't outpace that. And so we have situations where a new employee with no institutional knowledge, but also perhaps not as an advanced of a resume, is getting comparable pay to someone who is more experienced and has been at the organization longer. So that's called wage compression. And it actually is an opportunity, if you have tenure at an organization, to ask your manager how the newly posted salary range affects your compensation, right? So you can just name it and just say, our organization recently posted a job at with X benefits. I've been here for 5 years. I have more experience, and so the question is, how will this affect my compensation? It's a very fair question to ask. And honestly, organizations should do that work in advance, but most of them don't. Wage compression is a huge issue at nonprofits.
Absolutely. And especially with the fact that California is raising minimum wages. So we saw this past January. We're going to see it again next January. And that triggers this exact situation where lower level employees will be coming in at a higher price tag. And that should allow for you to be able to step up as well.
Right. And that is something that we do at Visionality, where when there's like a minimum wage increase, we review everyone's compensation, and we do two things. Number one, we do our best to give a comparable increase to the other employees who aren't mandated to have a bump. But one of the things I really like to look at too is what is the differential between the highest paid and the lowest paid employee, and make sure that that feels reasonable and respectful. So again, it's not something that we see a lot, but it's those are two metrics that I really encourage people to look at. Let's
Yeah. Let's talk about wage banding.
Wage banding. So wage banding, again, we're seeing more people move towards this, but wage banding is having a published range for every position and every level in your company hierarchy. And again, they should be public. This time of banning employees from talking to one another about their salaries, that's illegal. And so you should feel free to talk about what you're making and learning what your colleagues are making. Um, so we like wage bands. It's just very clear and everyone knows where they stand. As an employer, it benefits me because it allows my employees to understand what their trajectory could be within our company. And, we've got our org chart, and we've got the responsibilities within each job description and level, and then the comparable wage band. So people can really plan out, if you're liking hanging around, then there is a place for you in this, what it could look like. Um,
Yeah.
Go
And
ahead.
with that, let's add on that layer of, do you have special skills? And one of which a lot of California organizations are searching for is someone who is bilingual. So talk to me, Em, about how you would approach that as an employer.
Yeah, so especially in Southern California, it's really important. And as again, the same report stated that only 18% of nonprofits pay a premium for bilingual skills. So often what we're seeing is if someone grew up bilingual, that's just sort of an expectation. Oh, you just are bilingual versus paying a premium for that skill, but also the added burden. It's hard to think in two languages and to communicate in two languages. And if that's not specifically in a job description and roles and responsibilities, it can be invisible, unpaid labor where, oh, well, you just know how to speak Spanish. So could you just look at this for me? But all of that really adds up and it deserves to be compensated.
Absolutely. And I've seen different organizations approach it like having an additional degree. So being able to take that added education, degree, skill set, and tack on an additional level to that wage band because it is a very sought after, important skill set and valuable, and it's going to come with a lot of work in addition. So I think that's a really important thing as we, really do strive for language equity here in California, that we're thinking about that.
Yeah, and I guess the thing that I've heard too, and this is a lot less true now, but it used to be that if you had an employee with a deep knowledge of Blackbaud and like that suite of software, that you would pay a premium for that because it was a really important skill. It was hard to learn, all those things. So I want to put language equity in that same bucket of a highly sought after skill that deserves to be rewarded. And also, like, it just goes to support diversity and inclusion. So we need to measure success differently for different employees and recognize that, it's not, we can't measure everyone against the same ruler because our skills show up differently.
Yeah,
So, oh, thank
absolutely.
you. Someone put in the chat, and this is such a great point. In terms of work-life balance, knowing the published salary prevents you from wasting your time applying for jobs that don't work for you. You're totally right. I never understood not publishing a job salary because, like, we're gonna talk about it eventually, so we might as well get it out in the open and just be super transparent. Um, and we even say when we're interviewing new employees, like, we will offer you a job within the salary range. And so if it's not acceptable, then there's no need really to move forward in the interview process.
And absolutely. And it's going to, reflect um, a time, suck of somebody who's first applying, giving their time to potentially come for a job, then realizing like this is not going to work for me financially, as well as on the employer side, you have also spent a lot of measurable time doing interviews and potentially calling references, depending on how far in the process you are. So it's just respect on both sides, I think.
Yep, I agree with that. And so, Katie, talk to me about like the scary conversation of talking to your boss or your supervisor about compensation, and maybe you've had a change in circumstance in your life and you just need to make more money. So talk to me about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the hard conversations have to be had, and in the interest of work-life balance, part of that is being able to be compensated what you need and to be able to afford life here, and not just, feel like you are drowning. We don't ever want that. Your employer hopefully does not want that either. So before you go out and seek another job, before you think that, I make this much, but I need to be up here, therefore I need another job, I think it's really important to come to your employer and say, I really am struggling with my compensation. I would love to talk about it and see if there's a way that we can move me up, because right now I'm at the point where I might need to look somewhere else. And it's obviously in your employer's best interest to try and keep you, because it costs a lot of money to replace people. Emily knows this. We have a dollar figure for it.
It
Um,
so turnover costs so much money. And this is how we opened it. Money is real, money is important. And so we've been in business for 13 years, and over those 13 years I have had this conversation over and over, and I'm just so grateful when it's brought to me to say, I want to stay, I like working here, I need to be at X. And then it's up to me to figure out if we can make X happen. And sometimes we can't, and we've lost incredible employees for that reason, but that's okay. And I just appreciate the opportunity just to have an honest conversation about what it would take to keep somebody. And two, you don't know what's happening behind closed doors. And so it would be such a shame to go and get another job because maybe there was an HR conversation happening that you didn't know about giving raises or changing the compensation. And so it's just a good idea to have an honest conversation, and it's not bullying and it's not an ultimatum. It's just being honest about the terms of your agreement and, making a respectful request for an adjustment that would in the end benefit everybody to keep that employee.
Absolutely. And, we're in an age where transparency is key. And this is just another level of that. I've seen lots of things recently where it says, employer is going to HR saying so-and-so wants a $20,000 raise. We can't do that. And HR says, give it to them, because if we can't afford that raise, we can't afford to hire, train, replace this person. So
Yep.
in the end, it still ends up being a lot cheaper to keep people, especially if they're happy and they are truly just trying to make it work. But there is only so much that you can take. So
I want to give just a couple salary negotiation tips. And yes, almost every one of my employees is on this team. So this probably will come as no surprise because this stuff works and I probably learned it from you guys. So salary negotiation tips. One suggestion is to say to your employer, I need to be at X to stay here. That's just what my life is costing me right now. I want to stay, but I need to be at X. What would you need to see from me in the next 12 months, 6 months, in order to say yes to X? So I need to be, whatever X is, I need to be here. What would you need to see from me so that that is an easy yes on your part? And so number one, you're stating where you need to be. You are stating that you want to stay. You're giving some lead time. So that's the other thing is, if I magically had more money, y'all would have it, right? Y'all would have already gotten raises. So that 6 to 12 months or whatever, 3 months gives me some lead time to pull some different levers and see what we can make happen. And then two, you're saying, I want to perform at the level that you need to make this compensation feasible. So tell me what that goalpost is, and then leave it up to me to hit it or to miss it. I also like planting seeds for future growth. So let your employer know that you expect to have an annual review about your performance and to review your compensation annually. Make that just the expectation. It's baffling how few companies actually perform annual reviews, actually perform meaningful annual reviews, and then have a conversation about compensation, even if that conversation is, you are valued, you are appreciated, it's rough right now, and we can't make meaningful increases. It's still respectful to have that conversation. It's respectful to the employee to have that conversation. And then
and we'll talk a little bit later about non-cash options and, other ways to finagle some stuff. So
yes, absolutely.
don't ever get discouraged.
Exactly. There's always a lever that we can pull. And then two, it's critical that you have an accurate current job description, because you can't build a compensation package around something that's not a solid job description of the work you are actually doing. And that circles back to that unpaid labor. If, for example, you're bilingual, if that's not in your job description, then you're not going to be compensated for it.
Yeah, I've had plenty of nonprofit friends, colleagues, myself included, where, your nonprofit experience, it changes over time. Your staffing changes as people step out, shift, roles are created, roles are removed. That directly affects your workload, your job duties, and what you're doing. So something you signed on for has now also included, all of these things over here that were never on the table, but you've just absorbed them. And that is unfortunately something that comes with being in nonprofits, because we all care so much to make the machine work and to do the job, that we just absorb. And so that's that your review, the time to say, I have been doing all of these things. And it's okay to say, I either need to let these things go and we need to maybe reassign them, or I need some extra compensation to account for all of these extra tasks that I have become really, really great at and continue to operate.
Correct. Absolutely. In terms of salary, a true salaried exempt employee, so they're exempt from overtime, the minimum that they make this year is $66,560. And so if you're not making that as an exempt, then your organization is out of compliance. They're not complying with the new minimum wage standards. And it is very important, and it's in everyone's best interest to have that conversation. If you are not exempt from overtime, your pay can be less, but you have to track your time and take meal and rest breaks, and you must be paid for overtime. So almost $67,000 is the minimum salary now in California.
Correct.
Also, look at your vacation balance cap. Almost every organization has one. You should have one, because vacation time is an earned benefit. And so you have to pay it out when an employee transitions out. And so it can loom large on your balance sheet as a liability. So I always recommend that there is a cap, but that means you have to use your vacation time. So know what the cap is and know what your balance is. And if you're bumping up against the cap, you're not getting your full compensation package. So use that time, or have your employer pay out some of that so you're below your cap. Because if you are maxed out and you're not taking vacation, you gave yourself a pay cut. So make sure you know what your cap is and that you're under it, so you're still earning time off.
And the
Also,
same with sick time.
thank you.
Sick time is not a paid out benefit. So use your sick time. And I think the misconception with sick time a lot is that it has to mean that I am physically ill. And that's not true. It could be my child is ill. It could be my mental state is not great today and I can't function. That's okay to take a sick day. So be mindful that you're not using those vacation days to compensate for things that could fall under sick time, and use it because it's there and it's going to go away. And you again are not using your full compensation package if you're letting those sick days slip through your fingers.
It also doesn't have to be utilized in whole days. You can use an hour of your sick time to go to a doctor's appointment, or to take someone that you care for to a doctor's appointment. So don't feel like you have to even commit to a whole day off. Or, if you're feeling kind of under the weather and you need to check out a little early, you can use sick time to fill the rest of your paycheck.
Yeah.
So if anyone has questions about like cash compensation, negotiation, anything like that, put it in the chat and we'll get to it as we conclude. Let's talk about non-monetary compensation and how we might be able to integrate that into our negotiations.
Absolutely. So, sometimes if I come to Emily and I say, like, I need more money, and she says, I cannot, but what else can we do? Because I want to keep you. So this is where you have to think creatively. It's where you have to, make sure that your work-life balance is where you need. And that comes in through these non-monetary aspects of your compensation package. So something that I have recently experienced is I sit on a board of a nonprofit, and we're working through our executive directors new compensation package for this year, and she would like a sabbatical. And that was something that is as gaining in, I think, popularity in our area, because again, it's not a paid out benefit. So if she departs and doesn't use it, it doesn't get paid out, but it's a really great motivator inside the organization, because it's going to allow for succession planning, because we're going to have a whole month where our number 2 is going to step up into this executive director role and be able to learn the job on the job. And we're going to be able to find, those holes that we're going to need to work through as we make this proper succession plan. I think it's a really great option to be able to think really mindfully about the organization's future, while also giving something really nice to somebody who works so hard for the organization. It's also going to help her avoid burnout, because, being in a leadership role in a nonprofit is a really taxing position. So we want longevity. This is going to give that to her. It's not just a vacation, because vacations, you sometimes work on vacations, let's be real. As a nonprofit leader, you always have your email open. You always feel like you're going to be accessible in case of an emergency, things like that. You don't really prep your staff for a long leave in the same way as a vacation. So I think a paid sabbatical is a really great option for a lot of nonprofits to extend to their longer serving employees who have really made an effort and given a substantial amount of time to the organization.
Yep, absolutely. In terms of paid vacation, something that we do at Visionality, and it seems to be gaining traction, is we close our office between Christmas and New Year's, and it's paid. And so number 1, reports show that if you're in a tightly knit team, there is guilt associated with taking time off, because you know that your coworkers are still working and you're afraid that you're not there to support them. And so studies have shown that an office closure is more effective in combating burnout versus taking an individual vacation. So number 1, it's more effective than an additional week of vacation. But number 2, again, from an organizational standpoint, that if the office is closed and you are being paid, it's not a paid out benefit. So we are able to say we offer X weeks of vacation, and one of those weeks is between Christmas and New Year's, but it is not a paid out benefit when an employee transitions out. So it reduces my liability on my balance sheet and is an even greater benefit to the employees because the office is closed. Also, we're slow between Christmas and New Year's, so it's not a big deal. If everyone's salary anyway, and there's not really work to do anyway, then like I'm not losing anything by losing or gaining anything by having everyone show up to work and have nothing to do between Christmas and New Year's. So it like really works all the way around to benefit everybody. Work from home hybrid. This is a great thing to start asking for if you're being called back into the office. You want to talk about that, Katie?
Yeah, I think the pandemic really showed us that a lot of what we do day to day can be done remotely. And it's been proven that you are more productive. It's cutting down on commute times. It's allowing for more family times. It also, like for me, I have kids. So it also helps cut down my childcare costs because I can be home, I can still be working, they can still be running around, I can still be mom. So while again, it's not that monetary increase in my salary, it is cutting down my expenses. So I do feel the weight of that lifting a little bit, which is fantastic. And most employers are leaning into this. They're ready for that option. They will help facilitate a home office setup, whether that's a computer, maybe it's a stipend for your internet and cell phone usage, things like that. There's a lot of ways that it can be beneficial for everybody. It also helps, in those situations when my kid is sick, but I'm fine and I can work. She's laying in bed and I know I could be a fully functioning human, but if I am not in the office, I can't work, but I can certainly work from home. So it's not detrimental to my workflow.
It's also really excellent for work-life balance. You can do your laundry while you're at work, you're switching loads or whatever. Maybe you're not folding the laundry on the clock, but who cares if, you walk past the laundry machine and you throw in a new load, and then that just continues to give you more time that is your own when you're not at work. Uh, no meeting Fridays. So this is something that we recently implemented at Visionality. No meeting Fridays. It is and this, Katie, it was you who like finally kicked my butt to do it. So we had researched a 4-day work week. Statistically, people are happier. They get the same, if not more, work done in 4 days instead of 5 days. But I really struggled to actually do it, and I knew the research and I just couldn't actually do it. And Katie was like, okay, well, let's not meet on Fridays. And so no meetings. And then what that means is if you are behind on work, you have a full day to focus and get caught up without any distractions. And if you are caught up on work, then you can leave early because you're all caught up. So, Katie, tell me, like, as an employee operating in no meeting Fridays, like, what's that looked like for you? How has that change affected the way that you work?
Yeah, I think it's been fantastic because for one, I do a lot of writing. Like that's what I do. In my job role, it's a lot of fundraising. We write. And sometimes it's really hard to focus and write something really good and solid when you're in between meetings, when you are running between projects, when you are managing things. So Fridays, I feel a lot of mental clarity. So I can sit down, I can write things, I can edit things. I can take my time with things. I don't feel so rushed. It's also really beneficial because it's a work day. So doctor's appointments, running to the post office, things that are a 9 to 5, Monday through Friday only option, I can account for in my Fridays, which then don't take away from the rest of the week and are detrimental to, the meetings I do have in place and the things I do need to get done. So it plays very nicely into both, being able to go to the bank, do those things on my Friday with minimal impact to my work.
Yep. Well, and to just a very small adjustment in what counts as full-time employment can make an employer look very attractive to job seekers. So again, in that same study that I've been citing, 80% of employers count 40 hours as full-time. And even going down to 37.5 hours, which like you just get out early on Friday, only 7% of employers do that. So there's actually, in terms of attracting and retaining top talent, that's a really small concession, bringing down, we're done at noon on Friday. to attract and retain top talent. So just a little tip, it's something you can negotiate, it's something employers should be looking at, again, to attract and retain top talent. Vacation, asking for an increase in your vacation accrual is another way to improve your benefits package. And again, just from an employer's standpoint, um, you know, paid time, increasing a salary is money that I have to pay today, right? And that's going to affect the paycheck the next pay period. And so increasing vacation accrual is a way to get, in the end, more money from your employer, but it's spread out over a period of time instead of right now, immediately. So it could, if it is a hard no on monetary compensation, you can ask, again, even an extra day or two that gets accrued over the course of a year. It should be an easier yes for your supervisor. Let's talk about,
Absolutely. And in that same vein, yeah, holidays, paid holidays. So, that's another thing to think about, because in your offer letter that you sign when you sign on to a company, it's going to tell you how many paid holidays are given. And typically you're given a list of them. So, if you feel like maybe that might be a great opportunity for your employer to be able to add some holidays, which again is seen as an office closure. So it's not a paid out benefit at the end if separation occurs. But it's also a great way to show commitment to some DEIJ work. At Visionality, we do have the day off for Juneteenth. We've paid time to vote. We do Cesar Chavez Day. So things like that are not on that traditional bank holiday cycle show a few different levels of commitment to your employees, to your commitment to DEIJ work, and can also benefit your company as a whole. So I really do urge you to take a look at the ones that you have off, and be mindful of adding some additional ones.
yeah, title change doesn't cost. I mean, I guess maybe it costs like $50 if you have to get new business cards printed and update the website, but a title change is such an easy yes for an employer. And so, again, it goes back to that job description, right? What is the work that you are actually doing? If you've been in that role for a year or two, you are better at it. And so let's change a title to reflect that. You can add, a senior, right? Katie's our senior project manager. So just, yeah, it's such an easy ask, and it's such an easy yes as an employer, because it costs me basically nothing to give a title bump, but then it still shows progression in the employee's career trajectory. And again, is
Sense of worth.
It's what?
And your sense of worth. I feel like
Yeah,
sometimes, a title makes you feel so important, and it makes you feel like you've leveled up as well. It's a really good feeling.
100%. This one is
Yeah.
kind of wonky, and I just brainstormed it this week when we were preparing for this. We all have things in our job descriptions and our responsibilities that we hate, that we hate, that we hate, that we hate. You can ask to stop doing that. And again, it probably costs your employer nothing. And so you're not getting more money, but maybe the annoyance of doing your job is a little less, so your satisfaction goes up. And so that's just something super wonky. But, if we're talking about non-monetary compensation, like if there's that one thing that you hate doing, it doesn't hurt to go to your boss and say, this crushes my soul. Is there any opportunity to get it off my plate? And they could say no. Maybe they could say no, but it's worth asking.
It's
Yeah.
always worth asking. So let's talk a little bit about some money that may be in the budget this year, but it's not always guaranteed. So then that doesn't usually line up with compensation, because if you increase somebody's salary, that is a forever change. You have to reflect it in your budget going forward. But sometimes you have an overage, and you cannot guarantee that it's going to be there next year. So therefore, you're not going to be able to bump up somebody's salary with certainty. But doing something like a retention one-time bonus, it is an incentive to stay. It is a monetary compensation, so it feels great for everybody. And being able to recognize, years of service, being able to recognize commitment and still say, we want you to stick around. Here is a little something. We just can't guarantee a bump in your pay. It's a great option for a lot of organizations. The other one is a retirement contribution.
Before we move on, I just thought of this. In the years where we have been able to offer one-time bonuses because we had a more profitable year, I got this idea from my brother. We gave the bonuses before Christmas. And so nothing it's so traditional to give it after Christmas, right? At the very end of the year or the very beginning of the next year. And how great does it feel to have just a little extra cash going into the holiday season? So just a suggestion on that side if you are an employer. Okay, take it away. Retirement.
Absolutely. Retirement. So it's something that most organizations will offer to their full-time employees. But not every organization can provide an ongoing match with employee contributions, and that's okay. The options that I've seen are a one-time contribution into an employee's retirement account, which again is something like a retention bonus. It's not going to be a forever commitment, but it is an incentive to stay. It's also something to encourage people to think about their future, think about their retirement plans, sign up for those retirement plans when you are able to, if there's any waiting period. But it's a really important thing. And as you sign up for a retirement account, you're thinking about longevity, and your employer wants you to think that as well. So it's a little bit more non-traditional because you're not going to see the benefit right away. You're not going to be able to have the cash in hand, but it's something for your long-term life that is a really great gift from your employer.
Let's wrap this up with one of our shared passion projects, which is supporting parents in the workplace. It's not maternity leave. Talk to me about that.
Yeah. So this was something that we recently learned is don't ask for maternity leave. That's not a thing. And your employer can say, we don't offer maternity leave. However, what you are entitled to are your state of California rights of disability, FMLA. Those are the things that you actually cash in and use because you are entitled to them. They are your rights. Your employer cannot deny you for going on leave and using those things. So if your employer, your organization does not offer an extended maternity leave program, you still qualify and receive those state disability and FMLA options. So you don't ask, you can ask for more. Of course, we always encourage you to ask for more leave if you need it, but plan it out properly, talk to your organization and explain that you will be using your disability, your FMLA. So name it those, and then think of a plan. And something that we at Visionality are really great at is reminding people when somebody goes out on leave, whether it is maternity, long-term disability, for any health reasons, a sabbatical, sometimes, mental health resets, things like that, it's not paid. So your salary that you were paying somebody, because that person is now taking their benefits and their compensation from the state, it now frees up funds for you to bring in additional hands to help carry the load, because it's often not fair to ask an entire team to pick up the slack of one person doing a full-time job, and that can be really scary for people. So just know that there are options to be able to help ease that transition out, ease the transition back in, and make it feel like nobody else is burdened. Mom or the person going on leave gets to actually be mindful and really take the time that they need, because they should not be stressed out about what's happening back at the office while they're doing their leave. That's not what it's for. So ask for help.
Ask for help. Awesome. Well, we've done it, right? We've solved it.
We've solved it, and in 45 minutes instead of 25 minutes. We apologize for that, but there's a lot to say about this.
So are there any questions that we can answer? Does anyone want to share some lived experience about how they have maybe negotiated paid or unpaid benefits? And if not, then we, oh, Llewellyn, you came on camera. Do you have something to share?
Yeah. So I'm Llewellyn. I'm a project manager of strategy at Visionality, and Emily and I have worked together for 10 years. So we've had these sorts of conversations as employer and employee, but then also that means that I've seen the spectrum of nonprofits that Visionality has worked with over the years. And I guess I just want to call out and recognize that what we're talking about is like nothing short of total culture change for some organizations. And that the advice, the sound, beautiful advice that we have to share that is based on best practices can be such a daunting mountain to tackle for individuals and for organizations as a whole. And what the interesting thing is that when we've presented advice like this to organizations in the past, that it is taken with such a range of acceptance, right? Like some organizations are eager and some organizations are at the other end of the spectrum of like, that is lunacy, that's never going to happen, right? So just want to recognize that that we are like, we are aware of the fact that this really does require culture change in many organizations to be successful, to see changes like this. And culture change to me means that it's it has to be recognized. These things have to be recognized as important by the staff, by the leadership, and by the board. You don't have culture change unless you have all three of those levels in the organization on board for changes like this. And likely people who are able to benefit from this webinar aren't sitting in an organization where all three are like magically on board, right? So my advice is to just whichever strata you are in that organization, is to just like keep beating on this drum. Keep beating on this drum, and slowly but surely there will be progress. I really, really guarantee it. It may not even be in the organization that you're at right now, but if you beat the drum where you are, you learn skills that you take to the next place, and you're slowly but surely shifting the nonprofit industry. And it's very interesting to know that sometimes it's leadership who has to convince staff of their worth and value of these things. It's not always staff just asking for these things from leadership above. So I just wanted to throw that in to the mix, and I'm sure that will resonate with both of you a lot.
Well, and as the leader, it is absolutely daunting. And but it's incremental changes, right? And if you don't start, right? So like the no meeting Friday is the perfect example. Like I know the change I want to make, but it was so daunting that I didn't make any change. And so, making an incremental move, even if it's one Friday a month we're closed, or like just making an incremental change to sort of dip your toe in the water and prove that like things aren't all going to shatter because we did this one thing. And it also, I think, shows a commitment on behalf of the employer and the board to the employee to say, I hear you, I value you, I'm going out of my comfort zone, I'm doing something different. I think that really matters. You know, we're all here because we love the organizations that we work at and that we want to make the world a better place. And so I think it really is just a show of good faith on the employer's behalf. And like, again, as an employer, we want to keep top talent. I want to keep top talent. I want to know what it's going to take to keep you. Maybe I can do it, maybe I can't do it, but I want to keep you. And your employers and your managers want to keep you too. And so you're actually doing everyone a service by being honest about what you need and what you want, because they want to keep you. So ask. Any other thoughts or questions or lived experiences or anything else that we can solve for people? Perhaps we've done it, Katie.
All right.
All right. Well, as always, we're going to send out the video of this, and we would welcome any questions if you need some coaching and a pep talk from us to get up the courage to ask. If you want to do some role playing and make that conversation a little less scary, we're always here as a resource. Katie, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you. Have a good day, everyone.
Thanks.